Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Charles the Bandsman, and welcome you guys to another episode of the DREAMERSPRO show, where we cover everything from sports, hot topics, classic debates, entertainment, and we'll give you guys a fresh perspective on things and how we see them. So, folks, we got a very serious show here today. Before we get into it, please make sure you like the video and sub to the channel. Also, make sure you sign up to our brand new newsletter called Champions Digest, where you get free weekly updates on basketball in under 5 minutes every Sunday. So please make sure you guys go ahead and do that. Now, as you guys know, we're in a pretty interesting time and place in the NBA. We will be having the first USA International Players All-Star Weekend this coming 2026. And it really shows you where the game is now. The fact of the matter is, the best players, the creme de la creme, the top 5, top 10 guys are European players. It just is what it is. Or foreign players, let me say that. It just is what it is. You look at Victor Wembanyama. You look at Luka Doncic. You look at SGA. And I'm sure that a few others is escaping my mind at the moment. Nikola Jokic and some others. These guys are regarded as the best players in the world. This wasn't the case years ago. When the original Dream Team went to the Olympics and blew the doors off the competition, that now seems like a distant memory. The last Olympic that America was in, we barely won. Barely. It took a team of all-stars to beat a team that probably had 1 or 2 all-stars maybe and a bunch of role players from the NBA and those various leagues around the world. And we barely won had it not been the heroics of Stephen Curry. Right? But this was all predicted years ago, right? Years ago. And we had talked about this before. But what brought it to my attention to talk about it today was an article I came across from Basketball Forever. Basketball Network. And it says, "We're losing the battle. Penny Hardaway shares why he is not surprised by the European takeover in the NBA." It continues on. It says, after 2 weeks of play, the 2 top 5 in MVP race were Nikola Jokic, SGA, Luka Doncic, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Victor Wembanyama. Now with Antetokounmpo and Wemby currently sidelined, the first 3 are battling fiercely for the Michael Jordan Trophy. Then continues on. And while this international dominance is nothing new, what's beginning to worry U.S. basketball is the fact that the gap is growing bigger year by year. With LeBron James, Stephen Curry, and Kevin Durant soon leaving the stage, it could be more than a decade before we see another U.S.-born MVP. And Penny Hardaway may have explained why better than anyone. The amount of European players in the league that are dominating is not shocking to me because I saw it a long time ago because of how the Europeans train. And we have not adopted that theory in the U.S. because everybody is so single and separate. The AAU brings us together for a whole week, but they don't practice. So how does a kid get better outside having an individual trainer? Whereas Europe is giving you trainers because they tried to catch up with the United States and probably in some ways surpassed, Penny said on Hoops Genius podcast. Because if you're in the gym the whole day, working on your skill set, on your shooting, competing against one another, and even Luka Doncic said it's easier here than back in Europe. We are losing the battle from that point of view because we're not skilled enough. And there's not enough playing basketball 5-on-5, Penny added. I thought he stated the obvious. Well, as it turns out, this was a very serious matter for the late, great Kobe Bryant. And he spoke about this extensively towards the end of his career and in retirement. So what we want to do is want to play some of what Kobe Bryant had to say about this in interviews and some of what we read in some articles about what Kobe Bryant had to say about the decline of American players to international players. Take a listen to this sound here.
Kobe, you've been pretty critical of the AAU system and the way American players were brought up.
Not pretty critical. I'm extremely critical. I hate it. Because it doesn't teach our players how to play the right way. How to think the game, how to play in combinations of threes. And I think everything is it's a reward system. I think coaches who are teaching the game are getting rewarded. one fashion or another. And it's just a showcase.
Do you
I
feel
think
like
it's absolutely horrible for the game.
the young guys that are coming up, do you feel like the game is kind of stiff, whereas when your guys were more skilled?
Yeah, but I think that was just by luck in the generation that I grew up in. You know what I mean? Because like my generation is when the AAU basketball really started becoming you know, and I got lucky because I grew up in Europe.
Right.
And, you know, everything there was still fundamental. So I learned all the basics. And I think we're doing a tremendous disservice to our young basketball players right now. And that's something that definitely needs to be fixed, and it's going to be one of the things that I definitely focus on.
Kobe Bryant believes European basketball players are more skillful than American basketball players and says it's a growing trend that can be blamed on the greed of coaching at the AAU level. I think that European players are just way more skillful. Bryant said Friday night after the Los Angeles Lakers 109-106 loss to the Memphis Grizzlies. They're just taught the game the right way at an early age. They're more skillful. It's something we really have to fix. We really have to address that. We have to teach our kids to play the right way. Bryant was quick to point a finger at the decline of skilled players in the United States. He then spoke about AAU. Bryant said, horrible, terrible AAU. It's stupid, and it doesn't teach our kids how to play the game the right way. The article then continues on. Bryant was born in Philadelphia, but when he was 6, his father, former NBA player Joe Bryant, moved the family to Italy to continue his playing career. Kobe spent his childhood in Europe until Joe retired in 1991 and moved the family back to the United States. When you have limitations and you understand your limitations and you stay within yourself, you can be great, Kobe Bryant said. You know what you can do and what you can't do. In America, it's a big problem for us because we're not teaching players how to play all-around basketball. That's why you have Pau and Marc Gasol, and that's the reason why 90% of the Spurs roster is European players, because they have more skill. Bryant smiled when asked what type of player he would have become if his family never moved to Italy and hadn't learned how to play the game in Europe. Horrible. No, excuse me. He says, I probably wouldn't be able to dribble with my left hand and shoot with my left hand and have good footwork, Bryant said. I was kind of fortunate because I was growing up in Italy. The Red Auerbachs, the Tex winners, and all the great coaches were doing clinics and camps in Europe. They were teaching all the club coaches, and the club coaches were following their advice and their fundamentals like the Bible. And they were teaching all of us kids that type of stuff. Me, Manu, all of these guys that grew up around that same time were a product of that. It's a big difference. Bryant had a simple solution to the problem. Teach players the game at an early age and stop treating them like cash cows for everyone to profit off of, he said. That's how you do it. You have to teach them the game, give them instruction. But Bryant would hold his annual summer basketball camp and was quick to point out that any solution involving changing the current AAU basketball won't happen overnight. That's a deep well, because then you start cutting into people's pockets. Bryant said people get really upset when you start cutting into their pockets because all they do is try to profit off these poor kids. There's no quick answer. Excellent. So you heard what Kobe Bryant had to say. This was all foreshadowed. This was all foreshadowed. If you look at the most skilled guys in the league, it's clear that is the foreign players, with the exception of Giannis, because Giannis is just a freak of nature athlete. Outside of Giannis, it's these guys. When was the last time an American won an MVP? When was that? All right. Joel Embiid don't count. He's from Cameroon. Yeah, he became naturalized as a citizen and got his he's from Cameroon. Like, when was the last player we had? He wasn't even born in America. So when was the last player we had? Where was the last one? It's been Giannis 2 times. Then we had Nikola Jokic a bunch of damn times. Then we had SGA last year. And then we had the player's name just slipped on, and Joel Embiid. Who's leading the MVP race this year? Isn't most likely not going to be Nikola Jokic or SGA. Who's going to topple them? What American player is going to topple these guys in the foreseeable? Nobody. And I think a lot of that goes to the system that these guys have implemented in terms of rearing American players. But I also feel like these guys, they just dropped the ball. These dudes became more fascinated with being cool and looking good than actually keeping the sport alive and pushing the legacy forward. Look at all their predecessors. They weren't too big to compete in a slam dunk contest. They weren't too big to compete in All-Star Weekend. They weren't too big to play defense. These guys believe they are. These guys, you know why? Because they feel it's their right. They feel it's their right. Oh, because the Kobe's, the Jordans, the LeBrons, all of these guys, they, so it's ours. No. You have to fight for what you have. The NBA is not locked to just America. It's open to the world. So you better sit your ass up and play. You think they're just going to sit back and let you do? Nah, dog. You got to play to fight for it. Those days are over. And these guys don't have that pride anymore. They don't. If we want to look where this thing went wrong beyond what they just explained, look in the mirror. American players got too relaxed. We all know what it is. We all know what it is. And what they didn't bank on was that Americans would start rooting for other players, regardless of whether or not they were born in the States or not. They didn't bank on that. You have so many fans of Victor Wembanyama. People don't care. People want to see good basketball, bro. At the end of the day, people want to see good bat. They don't care where you're from. I don't care where you're from. Can you bowl? That's where most fans are at this point. When you got Americans talking about they wanted USA to lose, that shows you that they're fed up of these guys. That's a direct indictment that they're fed up of these guys. They're fed up of them. So this is where we are. Kobe predicted it, and it's over now. It's over. They may not be in terms of the volume as the amount of them, because more players in the United States get drafted, but in terms of the best, like if we were to have an all-star team with just like a game with just all-stars, and put it this way. The international players starting five, there's no iteration or combination of a starting five of American players that compete with them. There's none. Not on earth. Not on this earth. There's none. You couldn't bring five guys that could compete with you. There's none. What lineup are you going to put out to beat SGA, Luka Doncic, Nikola Jokic, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Victor Wembanyama? Who? There's nobody on earth. There's no group we could put together that are beating that group. Don't even think about it. It's not even ever going to happen. Now, people can run and say, oh, no, you got to play position. Dogs, this is positionless basketball we playing right now. There's nobody that's with those guys. These are my thoughts.